And we're off and underway. Here comes the chase behind. This is a good move now. Lining himself up to the sprint. Is he going to take the stage? Yes, he is.
Hello, welcome to Wales. Croeso I Cymru. We're back in the land of my fathers for the finale of this year's Tour of Britain. And what a setting, just in front of the biggest castle in Wales here in Caerphilly. But a difficult day awaits the riders. 4 Cat 1 climbs will separate the winner from everybody else. And yesterday's Gloucestershire stage was the perfect appetizer. Stage 7 of this year's Tour of Britain from Tewkesbury to Gloucester was a cancelled stage from last year after the race was curtailed following the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. The big news before the race got underway was that Tom Pidcock of Ineos Grenadiers would not be starting. 91 other riders would though. Early on, a break of 2 got away. James Fouché again in the hunt for King of the Mountains points, and that man Abram Stockman, who's been incredibly busy in the breakaway. They were also joined by Hartis de Vries. Soon after, there'd be a crash involving Jos van Emden on the approach to the first King of the Mountain climb at Winchcombe Hill. It would be won by Mark Donovan from Ben Turner.
Over the top of the climb goes Mark Donovan with Ben Turner on his wheel.
Huge crowds were lining the course on this fine Saturday as they raced through the beautiful Gloucestershire countryside and through its picturesque towns and villages. Eventually, our breakaway swelled to 5 riders, getting a lead of over 3 minutes on the peloton. The sprint at Dursley would be won by Mark Donovan from Liam Johnston. And then at the second King of the Mountain climb at Crawley Hill, well, the race exploded. Donovan led the way again in front of Ben Turner, and then the attacks came thick and fast, notably from the GC leader, Wout van Aert. It was anything but a normal bunch sprint into the finish in Gloucester.
And they're opening up. It's Rasmus Tiller who opens up the sprint with Tobias Janssen. Tiller hits the front. Rasmus Tiller, Danny van Poppel. Tiller holds on.
So, after stage 7, the Gloucestershire stage, here is a look at the general classification. And once more, Wout van Aert sits on top in the leader's jersey, and only 3 seconds separates him from the rest. But all change behind him. Danny van Poppel, by virtue of countback on stage wins, sitting second on GC, and Rasmus Tiller, the stage winner, sitting third. Former pro David Miller joins me once again here at the finish in Caerphilly. And David, let's just reflect on yesterday's penultimate stage in Gloucestershire. It all went off in the last 30 or so K, and it also showed that Wout van Aert is indeed a human being after all.
Yeah, I think that's going to temper his racing a little bit today because he was incredibly aggressive. I mean, he'd lost all his team, so he decided to take matters into his own hands. But even Wout van Aert couldn't control it, and to the point of blowing himself up. So I think he'll be a little bit more conservative today.
Who impressed you the most in the run-in into Gloucester?
Stevie Williams, no doubt. I mean, the way he jumped across the Wout van Aert group was just phenomenal. I mean, he made it look so easy. Magnus Sheffield was flat out behind, and he just popped across, almost to his surprise, I think. So he is, I think, the man that everybody's going to be watching today.
Team GB having a very good week. Stevie Williams is, of course, Welsh himself, comes from Aberystwyth. So let's hear from all the riders now.
Probably all the long transfers playing Monopoly deal with the boys. It's the little things. It's not the racing. It was just good time with good people.
Oh, the weather was quite good. It was warm, sunny, so yeah, quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, going through all the towns, it's a real cool race, and the roads remind me of back home in New Zealand.
I think just doing the 3-up with Harry and Jack, that was good fun. Doing stuff like that's always fun, and it's a great memory.
Riding at home, I don't get to ride in the UK much more, especially race. And to do it with the national team is even better.
The atmosphere of being in the UK with home fans and racing on British roads.
For me personally, the attack in the final, I think 2 stages ago. Feeling that you might get a chance to win the stage.
Those first days on the steep climbs, all the fans, I think the amount of fans that have been here this year is unreal.
I think for me it was probably stage 3 going in the breakaway, and just the support on the side of the road was mad. Obviously it was a Yorkshire stage, and yeah, I didn't plan to go in the breakaway, and we had no one there, so I went, and then in the end I didn't regret going there.
Actually been in a break, and there was some really nice crowds yesterday, so getting up onto the podium yesterday afternoon was, yeah, it was pretty cool.
Man, I must say that the start in Manchester, the amount of people and the vibe in the race, that gave me goosebumps. Tour of Britain is amazing, and the crowd make it so nice.
David, it's been an entertaining tour, kind of a tour of two halves, because the first half dominated by Jumbo-Visma, dominated by Olaf Koy, and the second half, certainly as things have got a bit hillier, way more attacks, way more entertaining.
Yeah, it has, and I think the weather has been the biggest takeaway. It's made it into a very different race. And the unprecedented 5-6 flat stages, which, again, we see very rarely in professional cycling. But yeah, you're right. I think coming into this last weekend, this is what we're going to remember of this year's Tour of Britain, because the racing yesterday was brilliant, and I think today's going to be the same.
Why do you think it's going to be good today? Is it because we've got 4 Cat 1 climbs to look forward to?
Well, there's no doubt the course makes it very interesting, but I think Jumbo-Visma cracked yesterday. I think I can safely say that. It's going to inspire everybody to take the race to them. And Wout van Aert as well, showing that he's not able to control the race alone. So it does mean that the race is going to be quite open.
David, thank you very much indeed. Let's have a closer look now at today's final stage, the finale coming here into Caerphilly in South Wales. The final stage of the Tour of Britain sets off from the picturesque Margam Country Park in South Wales. Heading anti-clockwise, the route heads inland for the sprint at Cowbridge, passing through Bridgend and the Vale of Glamorgan. The first KOM Category 1 climb is at the famous Rhy Gorse, followed 19 kilometres later by another at Bryn D. The sting in the tail comes with a double ascent of Caerphilly Mountain, with an average gradient of just over 10% across its 1.3 kilometres. After a grueling 166 kilometres, the Tour of Britain concludes in Castle Street. Margam Country Park was recently voted as one of the top 10 most popular parks and green spaces in the whole of Britain. The estate is home to the magnificent 19th century Tudor Gothic Margam Castle. From relaxing walks enjoying the farm trail to the thrill of mountain biking and kayaking, it's easy to enjoy a variety of activities. Caerphilly is a charming and historic town. Its most iconic feature is the magnificent medieval Caerphilly Castle, a colossal fortress built in the 13th century and remains the largest castle in Wales and the second largest in Britain after Windsor Castle. The town is the birthplace of Tommy Cooper and hosts various events throughout the year, including the famous Little Cheese Festival, named after the renowned Caerphilly cheese that, of course, originated in the area. Undeniably a difficult day ahead for all of the riders, not just because of the route here into Caerphilly, but because of the changeable weather conditions as well. They could play a part. So let's get straight to our commentary team now of David Miller and Ned Bolting.
Thank you very much, Matt. They roll off the start line now. Stage 8, the big finale that we've all anticipated at the Tour of Britain. 166.8 kilometres from Margam Country Park, over 4 categorised climbs, including a double ascent of Caerphilly Mountain in the closing circuit, to a finish in Caerphilly. What a day this could prove to be. And it's been a function of the lack of time bonuses in this edition of the Tour of Britain that we have still got 11 riders within 3 seconds of the race win. What do you reckon, David? The weather might play a part today. It's just starting to drizzle in Caerphilly, although it looks quite dry at the moment.
I think it will actually be to the advantage of the peloton. They've been riding in Tour de France July heat this past week, and that does actually inhibit you physically slightly. So I think now that the weather's, I wouldn't say much cooler, it's very humid, but that little bit of drizzle they're getting at the moment will actually feel amazing.
It's the 4th time that the Tour of Britain will have finished in Caerphilly. Historically, it went through a flurry of Caerphilly finishes, starting in 2011 when Thor Hushovd claimed victory here. 2012 when the race was won by Leopold Koenig, I think riding for Team Sky, the Czech rider back then. And the following year was Sam Bennett in an edition of the race where quite a substantial group of 15 riders actually came to the finish line together. It's a slightly different finish line though, the other side of the castle. And a feature of today's finish is the final 70 metres or so of the sprint are pretty steeply uphill.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting sprint. I mean, they have a fast run into it, but go as far as saying the final 100 metres, it feels like. But they're coming into its speed, but it is going to be a technical sprint. I mean, you have to know exactly where to go if you're in that small group, because you're going to slow up massively.
Harry Tanfield looking for a bike change by the looks of it. Information being relayed to Mick Bennett. We slow up.
James Fouché there in the black jersey on the bumper of the red car. Any rider who is intending to get in that first breakaway should follow him.
It's just a question of when he seals the King of the Mountains jersey today. It would have to be a fairly tactical miscalculation for James Fouché to miss out today, but it's not impossible.
Yeah, and today's stage is actually a perfect setup for him.
Arthijs de Vries is the rider just in between the rider from Danny van den Tuk from Caerphilly and the rider with the yellow dossard numbers on. That's Ben Turner, who was given the combativity award yesterday by the jury. There's kilometre 0. Mick Bennett is poised with the flag. The flag drops and we get the race underway. This is the official start of the final stage of this interesting Tour of Britain that's come to a thunderous conclusion here with this congested general classification race where everything could change at the final stage.
Welcome back. After nearly 10 kilometres of attacking from the start, the day's break finally established with 6 riders: Johan Meens, Ollie Wood, black jersey leader James Fouché, Casper van Uden, serial attacker Abram Stockman, and also Max Walker. Those 6 riders took care of the sprint at Cowbridge. Casper van Uden leading the way, Johan Meens the man to miss out on points. The heavens then opened as the riders raced on, but the racing was brought to a halt and neutralised due to a non-racing incident on the road. After a short pause to circumvent the accident, the race resumed smoothly with time gaps on the climb of Rigos.
And they go off rolling, and it was just a little bit under 3 minutes that they were held, which is appropriate to make up for that slight gap on the road as well that they were held at. So a little bit less perhaps than the 3-minute gap on the road at the moment. And which team takes it up straight away? Looks like it might be Bora Hansgrohe and Uno X.
Movistar again, you're right.
Cairn-Pharma, yeah.
Cairn-Pharma.
Carlos Verona, Steven Kruijswijk, Verona. Yeah, Cairn-Pharma, as they were before, getting involved in trying to make this difficult.
Well, they've understood. They're straight into it. So no benefit for the group of 6 riders because the peloton has done exactly the same. Straight into it. Ben Turner at the front there as well. Steven Kruijswijk for Jumbo-Visma, Carlos Verona again for Movistar. So it's back on.
And this is where Cairn-Pharma come into their own in the race because they've been very, very, well, almost borderline invisible throughout the opening week, the opening 6 stages. But they are a team almost entirely composed of climbers, and they have 4 riders, all at 39 seconds in the general classification. And the rider who's working on the front is not one of them, obviously. That's Ibon Ruiz, who is 17 minutes down on GC. But, as I say, 4 of their riders are at 39 seconds, and they are a climbing team.
Yeah, so it's Movistar, Jumbo-Visma and Cairn-Pharma who are now leading this chase. Cairn-Pharma rider almost forcing his way in front of Steven Kruijswijk. Steven Kruijswijk not fighting for that.
Wout van Aert, in the meantime, is almost towards the back. You can see him in the red, white and blue. He's just got 1 Jumbo-Visma rider in front of him, but he's only about 10 or 15 riders from the very back of this group. Ineos Grenadiers now moving forward as well. Connor Swift. That's Ben Turner tucked in 4th place. Swift coming up on the left-hand side alongside Gonzalo Serrano from Movistar, whose teammate Carlos Verona is on the front. And in this split screen there, you can see that the 6 riders are all still together, and they have still got around about 3 kilometres of the Rigos climb to go. But it's a very steady gradient, isn't it?
Yeah, that's going to suit Carlos Verona because he's not a pure climber. You can see just that big gear out the saddle on the front there. But we saw the damage he can do yesterday.
All still together. Haven't dropped anyone off the back yet.
Very interesting to see Cairn-Pharma so involved. As you say, we've been waiting all week really to see them.
This is Danny van den Tuk, the other non-GC rider in their team. And the only other rider, we've actually seen being aggressive in the opening 6 stages, Danny van den Tuk, but doing a job here for his 4 climbing teammates.
Slowly starting to string out though. So what they need to do is just keep this pace high to replicate what was happening before. Allow the attrition to set in.
Danny van den Tuk on the front, Carlos Verona on his wheel, Gonzalo Serrano moving up alongside Gregor Mühlberger, so it's all Movistar and Cairn-Pharma on the front. But still they haven't actually dropped any riders out of this group yet, as the road continues to wind up the side of this mountain. James Fouché continues to do Slightly longer turns on the front than anyone else in this group. These other 5 riders, of whom Johan Main is the last in line. Abram Stockman, the only other rider who's got points in the bank in the King of the Mountains competition. Verona now out of the saddle. One more categorised, three more categorised climbs to come. One more categorised climb before they get into the Caerphilly circuit, and a not insignificant uncategorised climb to come after the next categorised climb of Brindy, which comes pretty soon after they get up and over Rigos.
Van den Toek, the Kern Farmer rider there in the 2nd position, already looking like he's slightly on the ropes there.
It's getting harder and harder at the back, and riders are now starting to come under pressure from the pace being set by Carlos Verona.
Yeah, this is the heart rates are riding. They're now finding themselves back at the limit they were on before. It's good to see Movistar just not even changing their tactics, straight back on.
That's the top of the climb. James Fouché, I'm sure, will get to the top of the climb and take those points, the maximum 10 points. And he would hope that Abram Stockman, the rider in the light blue there from TDT Unibet, gets the minimum points possible, which would be 5 points for 6th place. And in fact, if that were the case, Fouché can win it here. But for that to be the case, Abram Stockman would have to finish 5th. Sorry, 6th.
Well, it'll be a surprise if Stockman goes for it. I think Fouché just moved to the back there. Will go ahead.
I mean, the
maximum points.
The thing to do, if Stockman had done this calculation, it's kind of unlikely that he's done it, but Stockman would be well advised to actually finish 6th and give Fouché the jersey at that point, and then you've recruited an ally. You've effectively worked with him and for him, because there's no way Stockman can realistically expect to win this King of the Mountains jersey. Fouché, though, that's 500 metres still to go. I thought they were a bit closer than they are to the top of the climb, but it flattens out a little bit.
Yeah, and look at that time gap. 150 now.
Jos van Emden has been dropped. Quite close to the top, though. As you say, 149 the gap. And Verona, what a ride. He's done pretty much with Danny van den Toek briefly the whole of this climb on his own. That's the top of the climb. Watch out for the black jersey. He will take this all the way to the line now. Sit on the front. Abram Stockman is holding that place in 3rd, which will just about mathematically keep the King of the Mountains competition alive. Unfortunately for Fouché.
We've got to get 2nd place, Stockman.
Well, it's played out very differently from how we might imagine. So Stockman feels that he's still in this race. He picks up 9 points there, moves to 22 points. The gap is 27 points between the two of them, and they are 30 points remaining in this race.
Remains a very big ask, but it's interesting Stockman is still trying.
So that does mean that Fouché is not mathematically guaranteed the jersey yet, and they'll have to take the battle to the top of the next climb of Brindy.
Well, a minute 20 taken out by Verona. Whoa, crash behind. There's a crash.
Trinity and DSM involved. Wet roads. DSM rider getting up. The Trinity rider looking a little bit more battered. Don't know which one it was.
Two of them must have just got slightly crossed up wheels because it was a dead straight piece of road there.
So Ken Farmer now really getting involved with this. There are 4 riders, don't forget, at 39 seconds. Here is the confirmation of the order over the top of that King of the Mountains climb. James Fouché picked up 10 points, starting the day on 39 points. He moved to 49 points. Abram Stockman, he quite deliberately came round and picked up 2nd place to move from 13 points to 22 points. Onto the climb they go then, the 6 riders with a 1 minute and 10-second advantage. It's the 2nd Cat 1 climb of the day, Brindy. It's over 5 kilometres and an average gradient of over 5%, but the steepest section of the climb by far are the opening 3 kilometres, and you can see straight away how steep this is.
Yeah, the peloton is going to come screaming into here, led by Luke Rowe. Good seeing his Grenadiers up there. Movistar sliding back. Jumbo-Visma still sitting up there, but just allowing all the other teams to ride the positioning, setting this up. Neutral car trying to get through.
As an attack there.
Yeah.
Who's gone? Well, Fouché's back there. So, oh, well, it's the Trinity ride. It's Max Walker who attacked, and that's a big move from Max Walker, investing almost immediately in an attack as soon as the road started to go uphill. Johan Main is the rider there that is on the front of the reaction there as they try and bring him back in, but a big attack there from Max Walker.
Yeah, big move, and it's so impressive he's able to do that at this point in the race. I was expecting it to be more of an attrition, but he's hit out. You can see how tough these gradients are.
Yeah, that is a gradient that is approaching a wall now. Not got any gears left, Max Walker. Seated as befits his style. He's a kind of powerful time trialist. Hit out early and has gained a few seconds on the breakaway, but the peloton are coming in fast. Luke Rowe has set up now Connor Swift, and Connor Swift, I think you're right, I think they might be working for Rodriguez on the steep section of this climb.
This is a lead out by Ineos Grenadiers, so they are planning an attack here. This is that's not just setting tempo, they are doing peel-offs. So Ineos Grenadiers are going to light the race up here early on.
As Johan Main, as we expected, emerges as one of the strongest climbers. He gets across to Max Walker. Casper van Ouden is holding on. Abraham Stockman too. James Fouché is probably mentally clocking off now. Can be pretty assured of his victory in the King of the Mountains competition in the company of Ollie Wood. But those 2 riders have gone clear now. Johan Main from Bingol and Max Walker.
Yeah, big ride from Max Walker, hanging on there, not able to contribute at this point. But the peloton is coming in fast. And as you say, Fouché, that will put his mind at ease, because that means likely all of these riders at this rate are going to be sucked back in and through the peloton.
Which gives him the jersey. Oh, yeah, look, a gap's coming clear. There's the race leader, Wout van Aert, all on his own in terms of teammates. He's got Tobias Johannesson on his wheel. Then Magnus Sheffield still there for the Ineos Grenadiers. A little ripple goes down there, nearly unseating. Well, Danny Van Poppel is there, and Stevie Williams was almost in trouble there. Gonzalo Serrano, last year's winner, is the last rider in this group.
Well, no more Jumbo-Visma riders left. That's the most important factor here. Wout van Aert is isolated with 52.7 kilometres to go.
Mark Donovan and by the looks of it, Damien Howson, I think, were both still there from Q36.5. So Brindisi is where the difference has been made. And Rodriguez attacks. Rodriguez goes, taking with him Tobias Johannesson. Wout van Aert lets the head drop slightly, and he's got riders sitting on his wheel. Rodriguez looking very, very good indeed. Stevie Williams comes past Wout van Aert, and there's a little bit of a gap now developing to... Look how Stevie Williams is flying up this climb. Straight across to Johannesson, past Johannesson, and trying to get onto the wheel of Rodriguez. They sweep past the remains of the second place group on the road, and they are hunting down the front of the race where Johan Main still has a gap. Well, Stevie Williams, the Welshman, is looking just every bit as good as he was yesterday.
Yeah, Carlos Rodriguez and Stevie Williams, that is a pairing to put fear through the whole peloton. And Wout van Aert, he is not able to keep up in the slightest. He is dropping back there. He is going to have to find allies to work with him. He's got no teammates left. But look at Carlos Rodriguez and Stevie Williams go.
They are up to the race leader, Johan Mains, and that's it. The breakaway has been caught, and Rodriguez is looking absolutely imperious here, the young Spaniard. Hit the deck yesterday, he crashed, but look at that form. He's using this climb and his climbing talent to rip this clear, and Wout van Aert is under huge pressure here, and he is losing the Tour of Britain unless he's very careful indeed. Williams is better off on the general classification than Carlos Rodriguez by 36 seconds. So at the moment on the road, with that time gap going out to 11 seconds, Stevie Williams is the virtual leader of the Tour of Britain. And looking good with it.
Really good. So it's all down to Wout van Aert at the moment. He's just got to limit it and hope once it starts to level out, people will start rotating. But for the moment, Magnus Sheffield is just riding a perfect race, sitting there, deterring anybody from coming through on Wout van Aert.
Williams not doing a turn here with Rodriguez. Just sitting on the wheel, and it is a false flat here. The gradient just settles down, simmers down a little bit, which might tilt things back in the favour, potentially, of Wout van Aert, but he's losing so much time here. There is the top of the climb. Carlos Rodriguez goes over the top of it. That is the second categorised climb done with. 28 seconds. Williams and Rodriguez clear by 28 seconds of a group where everybody is making Wout van Aert work. Magnus Sheffield won't work.
Oh, Donovan going.
He's got to get clear, though. He's got to break clear, Mark Donovan. Use that wheel of Johan Mein, who is third place on the road. But Mark Donovan, now Sheffield can follow. Wout van Aert finally gets a bit of help here.
This does not look good for Wout van Aert. There are not enough strong riders in this group to make a difference. Mark Donovan, great ride from him, understanding the danger. They have to try and get as close as they can as soon as possible, try and whittle this group down so they've got a group of riders who will rotate.
David, the only rider who potentially is strong enough to make a difference with Wout van Aert here is Magnus Sheffield, but he's not going to ride.
Yeah, he's riding a perfect race at the moment, and that's to Stevie Williams' benefit as well, because at the moment Magnus Sheffield is just shutting everything down.
Here is the order over the top of the Brindy climb. It was Carlos Rodriguez and Stevie Williams who went over the top in first and second place with a bit of a gap over a group being headed by Mark Donovan of Q36.5. Wout van Aert only fifth over the top of that line. But the subplot of that order of riders over the line is that James Fouché has won the King of the Mountains competition. On to Caerphilly Mountain. Stevie Williams, the Welshman, with Carlos Rodriguez on his wheel. They went clear brilliantly over the top of Brindy, built up a handsome advantage, and then pushed on with the momentary indecision as to whether or not to wait, but they find themselves initially with a gap of some 1 minute and 30 seconds that has shrunk to 22 seconds as the chase got organised, but they didn't catch them before the climb.
Well, hearing race radio is 12 seconds. So Van Hooydonk's final pull, 8 more into that now. Q36.5 do exactly what they need to do, which is go straight on. They can't let it lull.
Joey Roscoff, it is the American who's on the front with Mark Donovan on his wheel. So one domestique to work for in the interest of everybody in this group, and in particular Mark Donovan, who is on his wheel, who's on good form. We know that. That's what we saw from him yesterday when he was up the road with Ben Turner. This is the steep and sustained 10% all the way to the top of the climb.
Mark Donovan goes, so he goes straight off Roscoff. Wout van Aert is now there. This is a climb that better suits Wout van Aert. Magnus Sheffield marking him, but can they make a difference? Because this is where Carlos Rodriguez and Stevie Williams are the best.
Stevie Williams, knowing that this is just perhaps the first, well, it is the first ascent of 2 climbs, is there, checks that Carlos Rodriguez is still there, and these pair have a diminishing advantage of just a handful of seconds now.
Well, Carlos Rodriguez is the rider that needs to go here. If he wants to do GC, he needs to be ahead of this group. Stevie Williams, this is going to be demoralising from them. Over 50 kilometres to go they went. Stevie Williams hesitated whether it was too soon. Now he is going to have an internal monologue that is going to be shouting at himself.
Got to stay calm here, Stevie Williams, back himself for the final ascent. Everybody has gone deep on this climb here. Everybody is hurting. And behind, it stalls, and Rodriguez gets back on the front. And this is a moment where Williams and Rodriguez can develop their lead as Wout van Aert finds himself on the front, and Mark Donovan couldn't continue with that ride.
Yeah, this is where they've just got to almost ignore that group behind, because that is still a big gap and no one can react to the moment. Wout van Aert is keeping momentum. Niels Pollitt's still there.
But Danny van Poppel is still there. Rider 46 in the green of Bora Hansgrohe. Rodriguez and Williams then locked together. Remember, this is just the hors d'oeuvre. They've got to get up and over this mountain, not just once, but once more before the race can even be considered to be won. And that time gap is pretty constant at the moment. You can judge it for yourselves, maybe some 6, 7, 8 seconds, with Camille Bonneau working on the front.
Yeah, there are no teammates left for Wout van Aert. At some point, he's going to have to take matters into his own hand. At the moment, it's scattered. Everybody looks pinned, but Carlos Rodriguez continues. Steve Williams is getting dropped.
He's in a bit of trouble, Stevie Williams. He had started to look a bit laboured from side to side there as Rodriguez looking very smooth rides away. Wout van Aert there. Well, that's it for Bonneau, and Wout van Aert is on the front, but Rodriguez opens up a gap now close to the top. Williams will be roared on by the Welsh crowd here that have made their way to the top of the mountain en masse, but he's under pressure now, and he's losing out to Rodriguez, who is flying up this climb and takes a gap over the top.
Yeah, and it's Wout van Aert behind, who now is taking everything under control. You can see that group is getting ripped to pieces. Looks like Damien Howson, Magnus Sheffield still marking, and Johannesson there, but everyone else is hanging on.
and Van Aert is close to neutralising the GC threat of Stevie Williams.
Yeah, Wout van Aert now knows he's timed this effort so he can take it to the finish. But look, he's just pulling over. See, he's got Stevie Williams back. He knows it's 36 seconds. That's all he needs. He's got a buffer on Carlos Rodriguez.
Last year's winner, Gonzalo Serrano, battling to get back on terms with that group containing Danny van Poppel, who's the second-placed rider on GC. Ahead of him, Niels Pollitt is there in that group with Unaex's Tobias Johannesson and Gregor Mühlberger.
Wout van Aert riding with Johannesson. Magnus Sheffield, once again, being the Dream Team and a GB rider there as well. Stevie Williams yet back in there, so he's on the wheel of Magnus Sheffield.
It's the second ascent of Caerphilly Mountain. Carlos Rodriguez has the lead of the race, but a chase group behind has got itself together again, and there's an attack from that chase group, and it is Cairn Farmers' Jose Felix Parra, who's not an immediate threat in the general classification, but he's trying to get across that 17-second gap to the front of the race. He sits at 39 seconds on GC, so exactly the same as Carlos Rodriguez. And who's going to respond there? Looks like Damien Howson is on the front and Wout van Aert on his wheel.
Yeah, he took that opportunity. It looks like Parra just saw the lull at the bottom of the climb. Wout van Aert riding very conservatively at the moment. Still feels it's in control. He's got to time his effort to perfection because he is going to have to take it to the line.
Stevie Williams is still just about in that group, but he's towards the back of the group that splits a little bit, and Williams is looking tired at this point as Carlos Rodriguez just dips down this little bit of respite on the Caerphilly mountain climb before it kicks up much more steeply towards the top. So that attack from Cairn Farmer has been neutralised. Damien Howson looks across. Wout van Aert isn't going to ride, and that time gap consequently goes up to 24 seconds at the moment.
Yeah, Magnus Sheffield doing a fantastic ride here, just marking everything. But Wout van Aert, it's all up to him now. He's got no teammates left. He's having a drink. He's got to settle into what is going to be a time trial for him to the top of this climb and all the way to the finish line.
Niels Pollitt is still there, so too is his teammate, just Danny van Poppel. He's still there. Damien Howson and Magnus Sheffield now already glued to the wheel of Wout van Aert, who is taking the responsibility of the race lead. Big ride from Wout van Aert. Carlos Rodriguez has 30 seconds, and as a result, he has only to make up another 10 seconds on this climb with an acceleration, and he is in the virtual race lead. But Van Aert is at the moment climbing faster than Carlos Rodriguez and bringing him back.
Yeah, Van Aert riding a very clever race. He's just waited to now he can set his tempo. He's got to control it. He just needs to keep him within reach and then hand over to all the other riders who want to chase the stage win.
What a response from Van Aert. Where's he found those legs? It's brilliant. Van Aert looked beaten on the climb of Brindy, but somehow he has found this form, and this investment that he's got to make to the top of Caerphilly Mountain is all about the general classification for Wout van Aert, and he's got 10 seconds of an advantage on GC, and Williams now being dropped from this group, and it's agonising for Williams. He would have thought he had this race under total control, but it has all come unravelling here for Stevie Williams. That's heartbreaking for him. Under pressure here from Wout van Aert, who is stealing back control of this race.
Yeah, Wout van Aert now in complete control of the race within 6 kilometres from the finish line. I think he knows what he can do. The question is Danny van Poppel there? Because if he is, that means Niels Pollitt or Boris Hansgrohe will go.
There he is. There he is, that's Van Poppel. He's under pressure and he is dropping away. So that tactic won't come into play by the looks of it. Van Poppel really suffering on this climb as Van Aert then completely under control of his own effort, setting his own pace and in control of the race. The time gap is 31 seconds. Remember, 39 seconds is Carlos Rodriguez's advantage. That is what Wout van Aert has to think about with Magnus Sheffield and Damien Howson on his wheel. Pollitt still there, Bonu and Donovan and Zeb Kiffin battling to stay in contact with that group.
Yeah, Carlos Rodriguez holding them off, but Wout van Aert now just setting a rhythm that he can maintain. Magnus Sheffield has been holding that position, a teammate of Carlos Rodriguez, glued to Wout van Aert's wheel, but I don't think anyone can come round him anyway.
Getting closer and closer to the top of the climb, and that throng of spectators at the side of the road. Van Aert looking fresher than he looked yesterday and fresher than he's looked at any point today. That's an enormous defensive ride here from Wout van Aert, and it's effective too, holding that time gap at around about 30 seconds as now Rodriguez comes close to the top of the climb and into that wall of Welsh support. They would have so loved to have seen Stevie Williams, but admire instead this performance from Rodriguez. The stage win should be there for Carlos Rodriguez. That is a substantial buffer. As he gets up to the top of Caerphilly Mountain, he'll have close to 30 seconds of an advantage to take on to the descent. Although Van Aert is bringing that time gap down fast. 21 seconds he takes over the top of the climb. And it's all about the next 5 kilometres on the descent as Van Aert accelerates with Magnus Sheffield on his wheel. Johannesson and Donovan still there. But that ride from Wout van Aert has saved his race to this point. A brilliant, brilliant ride from Van Aert.
But now it's all down to Wout van Aert. He won't ask questions. All of them are just going to sit on him and let him take this to the line. It does look like the stage win has gone, but he does pull over just to see if anyone's going to ride. I don't think they will, unless they think they can bring back Carlos Rodriguez. Magnus Sheffield's sitting in there. They don't want to drag him to the line either.
And Sheffield clearly won't ride. His teammate has got a 16-second lead. Now, he has lost a bit of time. And was this the moment where he lost it? Woof! Well, he dodged a bullet there. Very close to that spectator by the side of the road. Bedding in now, 18 seconds, not enough to win the general classification unless he rides away from this chase group. But Van Aert, I think, is accepting the responsibility. No one's going to ride with him. Sheffield on his wheel, then Damien Howson and Tobias Johannesson.
Yeah, this is down. Mark Donovan moving up, still interested in the stage win. So Johannesson and Donovan perhaps will work with him, but at the moment, Wout van Aert is almost not giving them the opportunity. As Damien Howson, so Johannesson and Howson, he can't do it, Howson. He pulled up and he just can't actually match the speed.
So fine are the margins, though, in the general classification. All three of these riders sitting on the wheel of Wout van Aert, who has still got 20 seconds plus in the bank over Carlos Rodriguez to lose, and he's not losing any of them. But all three of the riders on his wheel now are only 3 seconds behind Wout van Aert. And if they counter him, and on that hard finish, a rider like Magnus Sheffield could yet win the general classification with one vicious acceleration. If he takes 3 seconds on Wout van Aert in the final, Ineos Grenadiers could take the stage and the general here. But Magnus Sheffield would have to do that to Wout van Aert.
So true, and that's where Wout van Aert has to be so careful with his riding here. He does not want to be fading, exploding like he did yesterday, because he will lose 3 seconds in that final.
3 kilometres to go. And Damien Howson comes through, much to the relief, I think, of Wout van Aert. Magnus Sheffield ain't going to do any work, can't do any work. His leader is off the front in Carlos Rodriguez, but Sheffield has designs on doing something spectacular in the final here.
Yeah, and it will have to be spectacular, and it's dependent on these 3 riders just leaving everything on the road, trying to chase this down. Not only the stage, but secure, as you said, their places on GC.
None of the other riders are making an impact on Carlos Rodriguez. It's only Wout van Aert who can take time on Rodriguez at the moment. Tobias Johannesson made no impact there with that brief turn on the front, nor too did Damien Howson. And that chase group with Danny van Poppelen, etc., is at 35 seconds. They're making no impact. They're 20 seconds down or thereabouts. Here they are. Gregor Mühlberger, and there's an attack that's just come off the front of that. I think it might have been Mark Donovan as in the second group as well. Van Aert looks round, checks to see who is going to come through. Obviously not Sheffield. Sheffield sits on the wheel of Van Aert, unshakable in that position.
Yeah, Sheffield showing a certain amount of courage there, getting in the way of that and facing the wrath of the other riders, but that's his job.
Absolutely, and his job is just to hold on now. Carlos Rodriguez, he's lost a second here and a second there. 16 seconds now his advantage, 1.9 kilometres to go. Van Aert motoring now, close to the finish line, getting faster and faster and putting more and more power through those cranks at a distance from the finish line that he thinks he can take and hold off the threat from the young American in the white jersey who continues to sit on his wheel.
There's the advantage we're seeing so clearly, the advantage of having a teammate behind. It is just slowing up that breakaway. Wout van Aert, they just lost a couple more seconds there as no one came through on Wout van Aert.
Damien Howson.
He's got to slot in before Magnus Sheffield. He can't just let Magnus Sheffield go through again and disrupt it, and he does.
Sheffield's playing a very, very clever game here. 17 seconds. Van Aert knows exactly what the game is for the American. And in the meantime, though, Carlos Rodriguez is close now to victory. 17 seconds. I don't think he's going to be caught. He's got just over 1 kilometre to go. He's held on to the lion's share of his advantage, but Van Aert is on the front again, shoring up his lead in the virtual general classification. Remember, he's at 0 seconds. All these other 3 riders here at 3 seconds, and Carlos Rodriguez started the day 39 seconds down. 1 kilometre to go, the last kilometre of the 2023 Tour of Britain, which started with effectively 6 sprint stages, and in the last 2 days has delivered unpredictable classics racing. A bad day for Wout van Aert yesterday and an imperious day potentially as he is close to winning the Tour of Britain, but it is not done just yet.
Yeah, he's not asking questions. Magnus Sheffield knows what he has to do. He has to try and jump and gap Wout van Aert. He's just leaving him on the front there. Johannesson and Hausen equally just sitting behind, not taking any turns now, everything being left to Wout van Aert. But once he knows, if he's aware that he's got that 20-second buffer, he can just sit up a little bit. But it is so close.
200 metres to go for Carlos Rodriguez. He crashed yesterday. He has bounced back, the young Spaniard, as Magnus Sheffield makes his move behind. And at the front of the race, his teammate Carlos Rodriguez is just 100 metres from victory here at Caerphilly Mountain. He got the better of everybody, the best climber at the Tour of Britain. Ineos Grenadiers take the final stage with Carlos Rodriguez. Let's look what's coming up the road behind. Sheffield doing everything he can. Van Aert imposing himself in front of the American. He's going to take second place, Wout van Aert, and he's going to win the Tour of Britain for the second time in his career. The winner in 2021. My word, David, my word, he had to defend today, and that was a brilliant performance from Van Aert.
What a ride. I mean, it looked like as though Niels Pullet now bring it to the line. And there's these four riders, a great ride from South Kefren again. But yeah, Wout van Aert, it looked like it was all over. I mean, they were a bit fortunate to have all these other teams contribute, but the way he rode on that finishing circuit both times, it was so clever. And that last lap, he just paced it to perfection.
Here is what we missed in all that. Magnus Sheffield's attack that Wout van Aert saw coming.
Effectively led Wout van Aert out. I mean, Wout van Aert made this look like a formality, even though he'd been doing so much riding on the front.
Knows he's got it won at that point when he gets onto the wheel of Magnus Sheffield, just waiting for his moment. Sheffield slamming the door a little bit on Tobias Johannesson there. And Van Aert doing what he had to do, just gets in front and then takes the line that Magnus Sheffield was on and finishes in second place to win the Tour of Britain. So, Carlos Rodriguez, the winner then, ahead of Wout van Aert, who picks up a second place to go with his second place on stage one. Damien Howson in third, and two British riders in the top 10, including Zeb Kiffin in seventh place for St Piran. Carlos Rodriguez finally gets a stage win for Ineos Grenadiers and celebrates his victory in style. Wout van Aert took a 3-second advantage into stage 8, and there are 3 riders still on 3 seconds who weren't able to reclaim that time. He wins the general classification for the second time in 3 years. Olaf Koy of Jumbo-Visma wins the green Cottages.com points jersey by a margin of 14 points. Magnus Sheffield of Ineos claims the white Sportive Breaks Best Young Rider jersey. James Fouché of Bolton Equities Black Spoke fought hard to take the black Pinarello King of the Mountains jersey from Mark Donovan in second. But Donovan finished in first place in the Best British Rider classification at the end of the race.
What a finale, what a load of climbing, in fact. And this guy, James Fouché, takes home the Pinarello King of the Mountains jersey. Looking great in it, James. A bit touch and go today because you took the points over Rigors. And then was it a good thing that the race stopped in your favour?
Cheers, mate, by the way. I think, well, they gave us 3 minutes. I don't think the peloton would have caught us before that climb, so I don't think it changed too much. But then after once it started up again, it was full gas right until the finish, and yeah.
Technically speaking, Abram Stockman could have got it back if he'd won all the points and you were none of them. But then the peloton were on the attack and they were riding for GC as opposed to for the points. So that played into your hands.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he was not going for it, but well, he would have gone for it if I wasn't in the break. But yeah, if he kept taking all the KOMs, I think yeah, I would have been in trouble. But I backed myself, and yeah, luckily the boys were going for GC and attacking early on.
You could take it easy, sit back, you get the Pinarello jersey, you win it on a Pinarello. You've had a good week. Have you enjoyed it?
Absolutely loved it. Yeah, it's been great fun. Big crowds, sunny weather, and yeah, couldn't have asked for any more. It was a great week.
Quite telling, James. It's an all-black jersey. The rugby team aren't doing it. You've done it for the Kiwis, so hearty congratulations. Thanks for entertaining us this week. And thanks too for your company. A brilliant edition of the Tour of Britain. See you next year.
start point for him.
Olaf Koy, the winner! Koy, 3 out of 3. Olaf Koy hangs on and makes it 4. Wout van Aert, only he can do that.
How tight was that from Vernon?
Oh, big crash, descend down. Tiller holds on. Van Aert is going to win